Hi, this is Rafael Rivera, and I'm super proud to be part of the EMMY family. I was actually going to become an accountant, and I began to take accounting in school, but then I took a music appreciation class, and I had been in rock bands as a teenager, and we were in a cover band, so I'd been playing music, but I thought, accounting is a good thing because, and I ended up taking a class, and in that music appreciation class, the teacher, his name was Jay Brown, and he played a piece called The Rite of Spring that I had never really heard before. And when he played it, my mind was blown. And then he was passing around the score, and there was this really cool moment where the band or the orchestra went like this massive sound that I couldn't even understand what is happening. And when he showed us the score, and I looked at the notes, and there was just like two little notes that just went down. And I was like, oh my God, that's doing all that noise, And that was the moment where I was like, wait, somebody did this, somebody made this piece of music. What is that world? And that kind of just changed everything. I went from being an accountant to dropping accounting. I don't recommend it, but I did drop it. And then I went to start studying music. We were talking about this earlier, it's like everybody's story is very unique. Everybody has been somewhere in one place, but so many life events happen. And I was born in Washington, D.C., and my dad moved to Miami. We all moved to Miami when I was 3 years old, and then we moved to Central America. And I was in Guatemala, Costa Rica, and Panama from like 3 till about 14. And then I moved to Miami, then to LA, and then back to Miami. And for various reasons, life, and it could be a much longer conversation, but I think being exposed to so many cultures has to have affected me. And I was also brought up in a Latin home, in a Hispanic home. So my dad would listen to Benny Moré and Celia Cruz and all of these boleros and Cuban music. He's a great singer. He had an amazing voice. And like he could have had a career. It's like nobody else in the family has his voice. But anyway, the thing is, I was growing up, and as a teenager, I was like, I don't want to deal with that music. I don't care about it. So it wasn't until I was in my 20s that I started paying attention and going, oh my God, this stuff is amazing. So that curiosity for music really started growing then, and I started realizing I had lived in all these places that had all of this music. So it was almost like, as I got older, I got a chance to kind of reconnect with all of that. But I certainly wasn't aware of it as, you know what I mean? You would think that, oh yeah, you're taking it in. I just wasn't aware that I should have taken it in. When I get a project, it depends on the timeline, but if there's more time, usually I'll get the screenplay and I'll start reading it, and I will start scoring that. And I make what are called script movies. So I'll grab the text itself and type it up so it looks like a screenplay, and I make that like an iMovie, but I just do it at a reading pace. So you're just reading the script, and then I score that. And then I send that to the director, and usually my collaboration, specifically with Scott Frank, has been that. So I'll send him he's reading it, but hearing the music as he's reading it. And what's really good about that initial process is that we kind of make our mistakes early on. We find out what doesn't work. He's like, nah, that sucks. No, that's not that good. I don't think that's the way we're going. That's not what I'm feeling. So we're having actual tangible conversations about what happens. Then the second phase is usually when he's in production, I start watching dailies and getting assemblies, and a lot of the music that I scored to those script movies doesn't work because just everything's changed. And the lighting, the scene, the pacing, and everything changes. And so usually about 20% of what I start with gets to the end, but that 20% really is kind of good DNA for the whole product. So for shows like Lessons in Chemistry that are period pieces, there's a lot that we're seeing on screen. And one would think, well, I have to write music that's of the time and the style of the time. But more importantly, the thing I really want to get involved is in character and supporting the character. That's everything. And really our job, I think, is to tell the story that you don't see. Like, we're seeing so much information. Everybody's taking care of the job. The costume designer, the set designer, the editing, the acting, and the lighting is all there. And so I can add music to support what you see, but the ideal is to support what you're supposed to feel. And something like Lessons in Chemistry was a lot of fun because the character of Elizabeth Zott that was portrayed by Brie Larson so fantastically was a joy to write for. And getting to score that music in a way that addressed her life story was a blessing. Oh my God, yeah, well, I mean, the thing about my childhood that is a universal, I think there are generations of folks that grow up with certain composers and people. My generation was, I went to see Star Wars in the movie theater. I went to see E.T. in the movie theater. I went to see Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, all those amazing Poltergeist. And those were Jerry Goldsmith, John Williams, all of these composers that were really iconic to me. They really shaped my childhood. I would listen to the scores and soundtracks over and over. James Horner was another one. But the thing was, at the time, I wasn't thinking I was gonna do this. Because I lived in Central America, and I was like, people that do this are born in another island. There must be a guild of musicians somewhere, like you're born into that. I did no idea that it would be a possibility, you know? And so yeah, it's always exciting, but it's an interesting journey. I think we all have it, you know? I think the interesting thing about the Queen's Gambit is that no one knew it was going to be as large as it became. We didn't know. We were writing something that my point of view was that it was going to do well for the chess community. And when people would ask me, what are you working on? I'd be like, no, I'm working on a thing about chess. They'd be like, cool, man. Anyway, what else are you doing? I was like, no, I'm working on this thing about chess that's all my time right now. And it was, I had no idea it would become the thing it did. So the process was really just like any other, but one of the things I knew that was happening was that Scott was doing right by the chess community because he hired really professional chess players to consult. So every game that happened in the story was actually authentic, and it was a real game. It usually was a recreation of a famous game that had happened. So all of that was like underlying the job that I had to do, which was write to the story. I actually love the collaborative process. I think this world specifically is requiring you to be part of something greater. And if you're truly out of like your own self and out of your ego point of view, it's an issue of 1 and 1 makes 3. And that's the goal. Like, we're all trying to help tell a story. So with the director, I want to write something that's appealing to their vision. It's not just appealing to me and like, oh, I liked it. It's I gotta like it, but I want to make sure that they do first, if that makes any sense. And that's usually the reason why I find it so appealing, because I find I'm not right most of the time. And so I'm learning, and I'm getting older, and I love the fact that I'm still learning by going through this process. I think, okay, to speak about Ezra, which is the last project I did now, was that just came out, and I was hired by Bill Horberg, who was a producer on The Queen's Gambit. So he called me, he's like, Carlos, we have this movie, and I'd love you to come on board. And I was like, are you kidding me? So, and it was a movie that had an amazing cast, Bobby Cannavale, Robert De Niro, Rose Byrne, and a beautiful neurodivergent actor called William Fitzgerald. And it's a story that involves a family dealing with autism and the choices that parents have to make to raise their kid, and when they disagree, because like any family, right, there's a different point of what are you going to do? How do we raise our kids? The music that they had, which was temp music, was very kind of uplifting and joyful and almost like puckish is the word you would say. And I started writing music because the temporary music was that I started writing that tone. And it just wasn't working. And the interesting thing I think that happened was that when we started thinking about the point of view that Ezra, the main character, had, this kid had, how did he see the world, and trying to get in his mind, that's when the score really came together. And there's no better feeling than when you land, or better said, when you take off. Meaning that you're presenting music to someone, you're presenting some music to somebody, and they're like, nah, I don't know. And when they say yes, Griselda was like from the beginning. We had months of conversation with the director, Andy Baez, and the first thing I wrote, he was like, I love it. And it was a beautiful, beautiful thing, because it never happens, right? It's like a unicorn moment. Ezra was the opposite. It was a lot of testing, a lot of trying, and then all of a sudden, when I started thinking, what about the world from Ezra's point of view? What does that music sound like? What's going on in his head? What's happening? And that kind of changed everything, and the tone and everything that we needed to kind of take off worked. So, yeah. I think it's important, most of us, that when we come in, a good example is to think of it as you walk in with the talent you have and the creativity you have, and you make this thing, and it feels like having a child. It's like, look at my baby, check it out, and they go, your baby's ugly, you know, and you're like, oh, the thing is, it's not you. You take it personally. But the thing is, the work you're making is the thing we're talking about. And so one of the things I really focus on with students is talking about the work and realizing they're not talking about me. They're talking about the thing you did. And that thing you did sucked. And let's call it for what it is. And we actually, a lot of the things we do with our students is have them critique each other in a way so we can all understand how to give criticism and receive it, which is the base upon this industry for what we do. We have to receive criticism, and we have to take it, and we have to produce something new.